Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Rafael P. Roman. Ask anyone in the tri-state area today if they're weather worn, and the answer would be a resounding yes. Winter Storm Quinn started pummeling Manhattan Wednesday afternoon, the second nor'easter to hit us in less than a week. Parts of the tri-state were sacked by more than 20 inches of snow as wind gusts of up to 40 miles an hour blew through. 300,000 customers were left in the dark, and close to 2,000 planes at area airports were grounded. And the commute home, a nightmare for most, whether by road or rail. And the one thing this nor'easter will be remembered for, thunder snow. Lightning was seen across the region and throughout the city as layers of unstable air moved upwards, increasing the amount of snow falling, which produced the thunder snow. In Manchester Township, New Jersey, a teacher was struck by lightning while holding an umbrella. She survived with minor injuries. We'll have more on this wild weather phenomenon in just a moment. At least one person was killed in the storm. An 88-year-old woman in Rockland County died after being hit by a falling tree in her driveway. Several others were injured. 10 people from White Plains were taken to the hospital with symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning after running a generator inside their home. And flooding was an issue for areas of coastal Long Island and New Jersey. For that, we turn to Metro Focus correspondent Naeem Douglas. Naeem?
Thank you, Rafael. And as the second nor'easter in just about a week's time blew through the tri-state, it caused major flooding, especially for the coastal and low-lying regions of the area. Flooding was the big concern on Long Island, especially in high-risk areas, and residents were urged to keep their cars off the street to prevent damage. Oyster Bay Town Supervisor Joseph Saladino said, quote, "The lowest point in the street is where the drains are, so parking anywhere near those drains is kissing your car goodbye." Getting around was more challenging than usual in parts of the south shore of the island. Massapequa, East Massapequa, and Freeport were underwater during high tide. At Jones Beach, winds and strong surf had full attention. And look at this drone video showing parts of Long Island underwater. You can see Carmen's River in Brookhaven swelling into nearby parking lots and marinas. Residents braced for high tide overnight, which caused more flooding as well. New Jersey didn't escape what many are hoping is the last gasp of Old Man Winter's wrath. The Jersey Shore saw coastal flooding as well as a healthy amount of snow. As the storm headed north, coastal flooding was also a major concern in eastern Massachusetts. And more flood worries? Is another storm looming? The sad answer is maybe. A U.S. forecast model shows a storm could develop by early next week. That storm could potentially bring in more bad weather to the East Coast. The model shows the storm developing in the Mississippi and Tennessee valleys and could move east with heavy rain and thunderstorms by Sunday into Monday morning. The system would move quickly to the northeast and bring substantial amount of snow from D.C. to New York City. But a European model says the system is moving farther out to the Atlantic. If it does that, it will be little to no impact to the northeast. We'll all be keeping a close eye on that. On the banks of the Hudson River, I'm Naeem Douglas for Metro Focus. Rafael, back to you.
Thank you, Naeem. This latest nor'easter will be remembered for a lot of things, including thunder snow, the curious phenomenon in which thunder and lightning can be heard and seen during a snowstorm. Here's one caught in Connecticut last night. Thunder snow is an extremely rare event, and according to experts, even rarer in places like New York. So what is thunder snow exactly, and more broadly, why are these types of extreme weather events becoming more frequent? Joining me now for more on that is climate scientist Gavin Schmidt, director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. Gavin, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
So Gavin, please elaborate. Thunder snow. What is it?
Right, it sounds weird, but you get normal thunderstorms when you get a lot of upward motion, right? So there's a lot of heat in the ocean that causes convection, that puts things way up, and it causes hail in the clouds, and those hailstones kind of rub up against each other, and that's what causes the charge, just like static electricity, that gives rise to the lightning. So when you have that in a snowstorm situation, it's because the circulation that's coming from the ocean is really vigorous, and so it's pushing up a lot of stuff very high. There's a lot of hail being formed that's mixing with the snow, and you're getting a lot of these processes that create the charge that gives rise to the lightning, and then you hear it as the thunder snow.
Is it very different than regular thunder? Is it more dangerous than regular thunder?
No, I mean, during a summer thunderstorm, you'll have more lightning strikes to the ground because the water off the coast will be warmer, and so you'll have more convection. But you do get these kinds of events where there's a really big contrast between the cold air that's coming in and the warmth of the water that's nearby. You get it a lot in lake effect snow, kind of near Buffalo. You'll see it there.
And it's not clear whether we're having more of these thunder snows and these.
I haven't seen a study on thunder snow particularly increasing, but there are some things we do know about the storm situation in this region, right? So we're seeing more intense precipitation. So the air that's kind of coming up from the Gulf or from the Atlantic has more moisture in it than it used to have. And so when it hits that cold air, we're seeing more of that vapor kind of come out as rainfall and sometimes as snow.
So some of the other things we've seen, like the nor'easters themselves, like the frigid winter days that we experienced this year, all these things, are they happening more frequently, and how are they connected, if they're connected, to climate change?
So our memories are not very good. So if you actually look at the data and you see, okay, well, how cold was it this winter compared to, winters 50 years ago or 100 years ago? It actually wasn't that cold. We had a couple of cold weeks, but on average, the winters are getting warmer.
We don't care about average. All I remember is those days where I felt like I was in Alberta, Canada.
People's memories are a little bit fallible, but winters overall have been getting warmer across this whole region. But we still get, these big kind of meanders of the jet stream that draws this cold air down from Canada and the Arctic, and we're still going to feel that. But where we're seeing those changes is where that cold air is meeting that warm, moist air from the south, and that's giving rise to these big rain and snow events.
One thing that does seem to be increasing, at least people in the coastal areas of Long Island, New Jersey will tell you, is flooding.
Yes.
Is flooding basically due to rising sea levels?
So any particular flood, you have to have a bunch of things going on. High tide, the storm surge, and sea level rise. So here in New York Harbor, sea levels have risen about 10 to 11 inches over the last 100 years. The global sea level is rising at about 3 millimeters a year, and that's starting to accelerate as we put more heat into the ocean and as the ice sheets in Greenland and West Antarctica and mountain glaciers are melting because of the ongoing global warming. So all of those things are adding to the amount of water or the height of the water in the ocean. And so when you get a high tide, when you get a storm surge, it's going a little bit further. And the thing about flooding is that even a few extra inches, even an extra foot, the damages go up exponentially. And so, we've seen this with big storms before. If it gets to 1 inch below the level that the subway will flood, nobody cares. 2 inches above, it's a disaster. And so there are a lot of thresholds with respect to coastal flooding, and we are seeing more of it. We're seeing greater erosion, particularly along the east coast of the United States, all the way down from Maine through to Florida.
And what's your assessment? Let's just keep it in the tri-state area. Are we in the tri-state area doing what's necessary to deal with rising sea levels and the other consequences of climate change?
So there's two things that we really need to be doing. One is adapting and becoming more resilient to the things that we know are going to change ahead of time, right? So we know that sea levels are going to be increasing for the rest of the century. So we do need to be more resilient in dealing with that. That means retreating from the coast a little bit, building up defenses, expecting these things to happen more often. The other thing that we need to be doing is mitigating, like trying to prevent the worst case scenarios from happening. And that involves reducing our carbon emissions, switching to renewable energy, becoming more efficient, moving more to mass transit, making mass transit worth going towards. All of those things help reduce our footprint on the carbon emissions and therefore what's going to be happening in the future.
And a grade. A to F, how's the city? Let's just leave it in New York City. How are we doing in all those things?
The city is actually doing pretty well. It's one of the leaders in the Conference of Cities that right now is going on in Edmonton, where all the cities in the world are trying to get together to work out how to do a better job in reducing their emissions and becoming more resilient. So New York City, like dating back from the days of Bloomberg and the Blasio administration, really have a very good plan in mind. And also the state and the regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is doing a really good job at reducing emissions from power plants. So we're not doing too bad. But there's more that we could be doing, and there's
all right. But I'm glad to hear some
go.
good news in this conversation, Gavin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you very much.